And I look at the Jets schedule the rest of the way, and this is part of maybe why they make the move. Pittsburgh, New England, Houston, Arizona, Indy, bye week. Seattle, Miami, Jacksonville, the Rams, Buffalo, Miami. Okay? I count 3 teams with winning records so far this year. Now, obviously, in a 6-game season, there's going to be a lot of teams who are 500, and they show up here on the remainder of the schedule. Take that for what you will, but I look at the schedule and I say, hey, they can reel off some wins. If they can get to the bye at or around 500 or above 500, then you're looking at this thing and saying we can get into the wild card. As you've heard, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for you listeners each week. If y'all haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code GREENLIGHT, and you will get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. 1, download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code GREENLIGHT. 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. 3, you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code GREENLIGHT when you sign up. Funniest meme I saw all day. Jets, 2-4 record, interim head coach, shaky offensive line, bad play calling. You got the guy about to slap the flex seal on the leaking bucket of water, and then 31-year-old wide receiver is image 2. All right. I thought he was 32. So actually I've changed my mind. I really have changed my mind on like whether or not if I were the Jets, I'd do it, because like when you think about it, and my take the last week was like there are better places for Davante Adams than the Jets. For the player, I still believe that, but for the team, there's nothing else you can do. The people making the decision are on borrowed time. You know, you got an interim head coach. You have an owner that's how old is Woody Johnson? I'm just going to assume he's in his 80s. Plus, if Trump gets elected, 87?
77.
Oh, well, you know, borrowed time all the same. I'm on borrowed time, 39 years old. And then Joe Douglas, who's GMing for his job. So, you know, you look at a 2-4 team and you think, hey, how do we get back in this thing? I don't know that any one addition on defense would change the whole thing, flip it on its head. I don't know that any one addition on offense would flip the whole thing on its head. But watching the offense last night, the one thing that gives the move credence is they're going to be really hard to get off the field on third down. As long as they're in third and medium, as long as they're not in third and very long, as long as the run game improves, as long as the screen game is efficient, you know, some of the things that they did last night pretty well at times, they're going to be held to get off the field. And, you know, the question then is, like, is that enough to imagine the Jets winning the East or getting into the playoffs as a wild card and making a run? And the answer is, I don't know. But I can tell you it's what you have to do. And, you know, I could think for Davante Adams all you want. I could think about, well, the fact that, yeah, I'm going to see my best friend, and they look really happy on the McAfee show this morning and all that. But I could think about the fact that I'm 31 years old, that I'll be 32 here coming up, that my contract goes through 2026. This is my last chance to get the bag. It's my last chance to get a ring as a guy in his prime, right? Because he's still in his prime. Like, he might be on the back end of his prime, but he's still a hell of a player. You know, the question I had is, would Aaron Rodgers be here next year? Will he be here the year after? I don't think he'll be here the year after next. But it does seem like there's a good chance he's here next year if he's healthy, especially if you bring him Davante Adams. And if you're Davante Adams, getting with Antonio Pierce and saying, this is where I want to go, which is a move in and of itself by Antonio Pierce that's not for nothing. I mean, like, he didn't have to send him to his favorite place. getting to handpick your place and it being the Jets, that tells me that he knows that Rodgers is probably going to be here next year. So that's good news or bad news, depending on how you feel if you're a Jets fan. But watching him throw the football last night and watching him throw the football in spurts this year against the Patriots, some of the throws against the Niners, as bad as that game was, some of the throws in that game, you could see it. Like, the guy's still got it. He can still spin the pigskin. I mean, like, that's one thing he can do. He's a jugs machine. You know, can he move? I don't know. Can the offensive line protect him? I don't know. It's going to be a long season. Last night it looked like the Bills got after him a few times, and the Bills are not a great rush group right now. Can they run the football? Can they stay in third and manageable? All those questions, I don't know that Aaron Rodgers has control over. Can guys run the right routes? Can he trust his receivers? Well, there's one more guy that he can trust and one less guy that he can't trust, because this is all but a sure thing when it comes to Mike Williams being out the door in some capacity, whether he's not going to get as many touches or he's not going to be on the field as much, or they are indeed shopping him. Hello, Kansas City. I think if you get in third and medium, you saw there was a snap last night with Garrett Wilson's in the slot and Teron Johnson. He stems up to press a little early. They see it. He's got no choice. He's got to try to keep inside leverage. He loses it anyways. Garrett Wilson is held to deal with in man coverage. And, if you're playing a team like the Broncos and they can take your number one wide receiver away, we'll say you go back a couple weeks and Pat Surtain is terrorizing that offense and making them one-dimensional. Well, if they had Davante Adams in that game, and part of the thing I came away from that game saying is, like, whether it's the right or the wrong thing, you're going to walk out of that game and say, we need a second receiver that can really be a game changer. Lazard is a good player. He's had a really nice career. He spent a lot of it with Rodgers, and you can see the trust that Aaron has and how he elevates Allen Lazard. Last night he's throwing the ball into a sea of bodies. It damn near hits Bernard in the back of the head. And it's a throw that, like, I didn't even know where the ball fit in there. It's a dime. I mean, as much as a dime into a sea of bodies could be a dime, he trusts Lazard. He trusted him on the damn Hail Mary, which, not for nothing, is 7 of the points you scored last night, and you scored 20 points. And that was absolutely the best shot that the Jets were going to give somebody in their current form. And we can get to that game in a moment in a vacuum. But I just look at this and I say, it is a little bit scary seeing that Rodgers can still sling the ball like he's slinging it. And now you've got two guys outside that can absolutely win. And you've got another guy in Lazard who you trust. It's going to come down to, can the offensive line protect? We saw more outside zone last night, a little less gap scheme. Maybe the Todd Downing thing pays dividends because Todd Downing is going to get the run game right. Like, maybe it comes down to that. Maybe Rodgers is taking the pass game. Rodgers, Davante, a little bit of Hackett. They're taking the passing game. And maybe where Todd Downing helps you is getting these run concepts in order. Because I saw more situations last night where Breece Hall had room to run than I saw in a few weeks. And, Breece Hall is still dangerous. Now, he's got to catch the ball in the red zone down there early. He's got to score on the play that Taylor Rapp gets him down, because a couple plays later, they come up empty. There are moments in the red zone where this team's going to have to be good, and I don't know if this necessarily solves the problem, but between the 20s, they're going to be able to convert at a high rate because of the addition of Davante Adams. So why do they make the move? It's all those things, but it's also the fact that I look at their schedule, and if I'm not going to call Cincinnati cooked, I can't call the Jets cooked, because they got the same record. And I look at the Jets schedule the rest of the way, and this is part of maybe why they make the move. Pittsburgh, New England, Houston, Arizona, Indy, bye week. Seattle, Miami, Jacksonville, the Rams, Buffalo, Miami. Okay? I count 3 teams with winning records so far this year. Now, obviously, in a 6-game season, there's going to be a lot of teams who are 500, and they show up here on the remainder of the schedule. Take that for what you will, but I look at the schedule and I say, hey, they can reel off some wins. They can reel off wins. They've got 5 games before the bye. If they go 3-2, they'll be a game below 500 at the bye. If they find a way to go 4-1, and that's where their head's at, like they can be 2-4, they'd be 6-5 at the bye. So I think the next 5 weeks of the season is going to define whether or not this was the right move. If they can get to the bye at or around 500 or above 500, then you're looking at this thing and saying we can get to the wild card, because the other wild card teams right now, Pittsburgh, the Chargers, Indy, if it ended today, they are your wild card teams in the AFC. Do you think Indy hangs in there? Do you trust the Chargers? Do you trust Pittsburgh? We're going to see Sunday night. They're going to play that team Sunday night. That's going to be an enormous game. And not for nothing, we're talking about a quarterback change in Pittsburgh. We'll get to that in a little bit. So when you look at those 3 teams, the Jets have to feel bullish about being able to beat or compete with those teams with the addition of Davante Adams. Okay? And then on top of that, the other team you got to deal with, that's the only other serious, I don't want to say only other serious contender for the wild card spot who's not currently in if the season stopped today. The other team on the outside looking in is the Bengals. The Bengals have 5 games left facing teams with winning records. So it's a very abbreviated, small sample size. It's borderline lazy way to break down the rest of the schedule. But I do look at this and say, hey, the Jets are probably thinking, hey, we can reel off some wins here. Plus, you don't have a choice. And that's the part of it for me. As an analyst, I can say, hey, I don't think this makes them a contender, but it really doesn't matter. Because in that building, you got a bunch of guys that have been waiting to cash in this window in New York, and a bunch of guys on defense who have watched quarterbacks the likes of Zach Wilson take the field for a long time. You finally get Rodgers, and maybe it doesn't look the way you thought it'd look, but I'll be damned if we don't try to make it look as good as it possibly can while we have him. So I understand why they're doing it, and there is a case to be made that it could work. After watching last night, do I get it? I get it more than I got it like a week ago, because Todd Downing called the plays and it looked better. And how that responsibility is divvied up, only the people in the building know that, but I do believe maybe the run game gets cleaned up. I like some of the concepts last night. They are playing the Bills, who just gave up a country mile against the Ravens. They're doing that to everybody they play. Nothing personal, but you'll have to play them in the playoffs. And so I think it's really paramount when you look at a team that's trying to compete for a Super Bowl. What does it take to win a Super Bowl? It takes not only a team with very few weaknesses, but it also takes a team that's got strengths and a high floor in areas that allow you to match up with 3-4 different teams along the way, along that run. Because that's what it is. You're starting to think about this move. This move is a postseason move. This is a move that's going to hopefully get you to the postseason, but it's also a move with the postseason in mind. So the main concern for me would be the offensive line and the run defense. And those things don't magically get fixed. Like, those are 2 areas where, we weren't great in some areas when we won the Super Bowl with the Eagles. We were good in a lot of areas, but one area that we were very good in, to great in, was the lines on both sides of the ball. And so, I watched that first drive last night against the Bills, and shout out to Aaron Cromer, offensive line coach for the Buffalo Bills, who used to coach my brother Kyle in Chicago. Speaks very highly of him. I speak highly of him. I know a lot about Cromer. He had those guys humming on that first drive. They were moving bodies. There were guys that I'm not going to mention out loud. You just go watch the tape, that were getting put on public transit. They were getting picked up and dropped off at their destination 6-7 yards down the field. The front was moving people, and they're moving people in front of a 24-year-old rookie. I'm like, who the fuck is that guy? I don't watch college football. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where if that team, who I think is committed to running the ball, in the past, we've looked at them in the past calendar year, and they go into a Dallas game and they just they're dribbling Dallas's head. Okay. They're barely letting Josh throw the ball in that game because they're like, we're just going to. So they've added that element to their offense. They're a team that can run the football. The Ravens are a team that can run the football. The Chargers are a team that can run the football. You better believe the Chiefs are going to be able to run the football if and when you see them in the postseason, because that's what they do. You know what I mean? They got three guys in the middle up front that'll bully you. And whether or not Patrick Mahomes is throwing to Mike Williams in a week, or, you know, if Hollywood Brown and Rashee Rice never come back, which they won't, they're still going to find a way. And part of that way is going to be run the football. So you've got to stop the run. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you have Davante Adams, Garrett Wilson. I mean, imagine Garrett Wilson on your second best cover guy. Not every team's going to have a guy that can cover Garrett Wilson. So you get a lot of formational flexibility. You can pick your matchups, the whole thing. But when the defense is on the field and when you have to run the ball, can you play physical? Like, can you play physical up front on both sides of the ball? You can't win a Super Bowl without doing that. So if you want to win a Super Bowl, if you want this move to pay off, it can't be one and done in the playoffs, because that would be a failure. And it can't be, you know, just being in the conversation in December. They have to find a way to get in. And here's the thing about the Bills. We go to this last night. The Bills are finding ways to win, missing a ton of guys. They've been doing that for the you know, the majority of the last 2 years. They might get Milano back at some point. You know, they might get they're going to get Ed Oliver back soon. And that Bills team, like, I'm impressed with the Bills. Okay, I don't know if I left anything off talking about the Davante trade. By the way, it's a conditional third, so it turns into a 2 if Davante Adams is all pro or active for the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl. The details on the money, I mean, like, the Raiders have to pick up some dead cap this year and next year.
Yeah, and an interesting note, Chris, it came out from Rappaport later. We talked, you mentioned, you know, what the picture looks like for the Jets next year with Rodgers. The Jets and Davante have agreed to do a contract restructure for 2024. And Rappaport added that they'll have to adjust 25 and 26 eventually.
Got
which, it. You know, could be understood as we'll kind of see what happens under.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. And one more thing to look at with this, I mean, like, with everything changing in New York, one of the things they said with Todd Downing taking over play calling was, we want to get play calls in faster, right? And we want to be better on first down, and we want more play action pass. They said that out loud. I think also it's worth noting that they've been 28th in motion, 22nd in play action. So when you look at them last night, I asked Nolan to run these numbers for me. I said, let me know if those things changed. First down efficiency, weeks 1 through 5, 24th in EPA per play on first down. Week 6, 10th in EPA per play on first down. So check. Okay, motion, weeks 1 through 5, 30th in shift motion percentage. Week 6, 7th in shift motion percentage. Play action pass, weeks 1 through 5, 25th in play action pass percentage. Week 6, 6th in play action pass percentage. So a couple things. They did say that out loud. But I don't know that people are coming into a game plan, you know, breaking down their tape saying, we're not going to go off of what we've seen this offense do most of the year. I think last night was a very unique situation for them with an interim head coach and a new play caller that they could throw new wrinkles in. And Breece Hall said it, like, a lot of it's execution, but you can see these subtle differences in tendencies. And so this is week 1, them throwing the tendencies off. Next week, they're going to be week 2 with the new play caller, and they're going to have a new wide receiver. So, I mean, this is going to be kind of a work in progress, figuring out who they're going to be exactly as the year goes on, which works to their advantage. But you would have really liked to have gotten that win last night. And I always say this, interim head coach is why I didn't bet the Bills last night. You know, even though most of me, you know, I'm a Bills lover. I'm a Josh Allen lover. I think what Sean McDermott's been able to do so far this year and last year has been nothing short of incredible at times. When he's not doing shit like he was last week, backed up on the goal line in Houston, and walk over and tell Joe Brady not to do that. But for the most part, he's been really good when he's not calling a zero blitz with the game on the line against Denver, giving them the game. There's just a couple moments just for the people out there who's like, no, he hasn't been good. He's also gotten a lot of guys to play big who are not household names or people that take a lot of snaps for this defense. I said nobody gets little guys to play bigger than Sean McDermott. And last night, I think that was on display as well. In a game where you're playing a team that's going to give you their best shot at home, albeit I think with two baseball teams playing in the same city at the same time. So it was kind of a weird vibe. It's like, you know, you get your back against the wall and most of the cities like over here looking at baseball. But they had a real opportunity to win that game, and they didn't because a lot of the same things happen. Penalties. You know, is that going to change because Davante Adams gets here? It didn't change because Robert Saleh was gone. You know, the penalties hurt them, hurt the Bills a lot too. It was a sloppy game. But the Jets' mishaps, they continue, right down to Mike Williams not running down the red line. And I'm not going to nitpick Aaron Rodgers for talking about what happened. I'm just not. I don't have a hatchet out for Aaron Rodgers. Mike Williams got to run down the red line. If that's what he's expected to do, that's what he's got to do. You know, I could sit here and say the ball could have been here or there. Like, I'm not a quarterback. So I'll leave that up to the quarterbacks. But what I will say is, like, the not being on the same page wasn't Robert Saleh, you know, because it continued into this week. And the defense, this is the thing that's a little bit concerning. And you're probably thinking, like, Chris, what's the take? I'm just telling you what's on my mind. Okay. You get rid of Robert Saleh. He's done a really nice job with the defense for the most part. Although the run game, the run defense that you saw last night, that's not a new thing. You got Jeff Ulbrich now who's got the headset on. And he's got to worry about a bunch of head coach shit. So the strength of your team, you've now taken something out of that bucket. I don't know how that manifests the rest of the year. Last night at times it was not great. And then, you know, you've got new pieces and new play callers on offense. So to stick the landing on this thing would be pretty impressive. But you have to take a shot. I get it. I totally get it. Doesn't fix the defense. Bottom third of the league in yards before contact. Allowed 20th in yards after contact. Bottom half of the league in yards per attempt on the ground. So also another thing is 6 and 8-man boxes. So like they are with their cover guys outside, they are committing to stopping the run and they're still not doing it. Okay, and that's a concern. But let me just glaze the Bills for a second. Okay, this is what I've been waiting to do. We should make the thing about the team that won the game, but you know how it is. I was so impressed with everything I just said about the Jets having their back against the wall, with them coming in, down James Cook, starting a young running back who's going to get the ball a ton. He's not that young, though. He's 24. I tweeted last night he runs like a 24-year-old running back. And I don't think people understood what I was saying. What I'm saying is he acted like he had been there before. Like he carried a full workload like he was a feature back in the league at one point and was getting a spot start. I mean, he was great, and the offensive line was awesome. I mean, the catch that kid made backed up at the beginning of the game where Josh heaves it on like possession 2 or 3 down the field. To that point, with the way they had committed the run game and the quick game, I wasn't sure if Josh was dinged or what. I wasn't sure if they were trying to keep the workload down or what. But when he broke the pocket and threw that ball, I was like, oh, he's just fine. And for that kid to come down with that catch to get him off the shadow of their goal line in a game early where the Jets looked like they were moving the ball, that was big, okay? Not just the work he did on the ground, but also catching the football. And now you've got – I haven't even gotten to this, the Amari Cooper thing. So, you know, last night when I'm watching them and I'm saying, you know, I love Matt Collins. He's my guy. Did a great job in the red zone in a couple circumstances. You know, Troy thought he probably could have helped Josh out a little bit more on that last play, break that route off a little bit underneath. But it's a hot route. You know, it's just to even get it on his hands is really good. End up going up a field goal. That's the difference. But now you've got a guy like that you don't have to worry about going to Mac in every situation. I thought last night Shakir was kind of a decoy. Me and Nolan were talking about it. It was like he just didn't get the ball. And, Noel said it. He didn't look like
Yeah,
he was.
he looked like he was running about 3/4 speed. He was playing Fred tempo.
And, like when they're down in the goal line, he's split all the way out. Like they're clearing the dance floor for whatever they're trying to do. Now you don't have to make those considerations where it's like, hey, if we don't like the matchup with Shakir, or Shakir's hurt, or maybe Coleman, we're having trouble getting him the ball. By the way, like every shot they take to him, like nothing bad's going to happen. Like almost something good happens at least every time. This is an offense that runs through the middle of the field. Okay, you've got Kincaid, you've got Knox, you have Shakir who can do work in the slot. I like them putting Samuel in the backfield. I liked a couple of those looks last night. Samuel out of the backfield was a nice wrinkle. You've got James Cook out of the backfield. You've got this young guy who he says has the body control of Mike Thomas. He reminds him of Mike Thomas. He says he's got the best body control of anybody he's played with. And I think we've seen that in spurts so far this season with Coleman. So that's going fine. But what do you do when you need to take a shot outside the numbers? This is a real deal wide receiver one who's played most of his career in Dallas and in obscurity. It's almost one and the same if it weren't for all the fucking talk shows every day, paying attention to Dallas. He has not tasted hope like this. I mean, this is for a guy like Amari Cooper, who I have so much respect for, to find this place with Josh playing the way he's playing. Josh is playing great. Okay. Houston game wasn't great, but I thought last night he had some really great moments. And for the entirety of the season, he hasn't given the ball away, which is kind of a thing we're accustomed to seeing from Josh Allen. He's taking care of the football. He's distributing the football. Now you've got a guy outside that when you take Kincaid away or you pack the middle of the field or you play the Ravens, because when we walked out of that Ravens game, what did I say? I said, this is the kind of game when you got a Kyle Hamilton and he's just patrolling the middle of the field and he's taking away your security blanket and you got to decide between going outside to Coleman or tucking it and running. I love having another weapon outside, okay? And this is a game changer. You look at the way possibly another matchup with Baltimore plays out. Well, it won't be 10 points. They're going to have a better plan, and they're going to have one more guy to get the ball to. So, I think defensively for Buffalo, again, Sean gets these little guys to play big. Taylor Rapp last night, all I heard coming to the game was Rodgers is going to feast because of safeties. And at times he did. I'm watching Hamlin run down. I think he's the robber early in the game, and he's just not quick enough. He's just not in the right place. The safety play has been something that you kind of you hold on to your butts on if you're a Bills fan. But now seeing Taylor Rapp play the way he played last night, that's a guy you can absolutely trust. I mean, I know people already knew that, but he played huge in that game. He had 4 points on the tackle. That's 4 points off the board in the Breece Hall tackle. That's 7 points off the board when him and DeMar converged to break that pass up in the end zone. When he blew up Ruckert late in the game, I think that's 3 points. I think that's the difference between overtime and just being off the field. So big shout out to him making huge plays for his defense. Bernard's been huge since he got back. I mean, just played big. And the guys up front, Epinesa, who got jobbed on that sack call. I think it's ironic that the NFL is going to protect the two quarterbacks in this game, Josh included, on the Kinlaw play, which I didn't see that close enough to say for sure if it was or if it wasn't, because that, I'm watching the game by the fire pit last night. But I cannot believe the NFL is trying to act like they care about the well-being of quarterbacks a week removed from what they did in Houston, which was run Josh back on the field after he's unconscious. That's the problem I have with those calls. And don't tell me you care about the quarterbacks. You just care about the offense. Because the best thing for offensive production and for TV was to get Josh back on the field. The best thing for offensive production and for TV is to keep the quarterbacks from getting breathed on, which is what happened when AJ Epinesa won on a TE game last night, came inside for his second sack. I mean, that's a 250-pound man. He's not hurting Aaron Rodgers. There are some guys that could really hurt Aaron Rodgers. That is not one of those hits. And yeah, he dropped his weight on him. But like, just as a sidebar, the NFL is full of shit on that thing. Just full of shit. And I got to watch this a week after I saw you trot Josh Allen back on the field after he went limp on the field. No questions asked. I haven't seen a single person from the NFL address that thing other than, yep, he cleared protocol. Same thing with Fields on Sunday night. But the whole point is AJ Epinesa was balling out. Guys like that were balling out. Guys up front were stepping up. He hit Tyron Smith, who's a Hall of Famer, with a stutter swipe. Thing of beauty last night. Sean gets little guys to play big. And I'm not just talking about in stature. I'm talking about guys that you're not thinking about. You're not factoring into the game plan. And I thought the defense, when it came down to it, made enough plays to win. And the penalties hurt them too. You go to the fourth quarter, dudes are fighting in the dark like stepbrothers. Deion Dawkins is getting some boneheaded penalty, and he's killing a drive where you're already backed up. There was a point in this game where the Bills couldn't get a break either. And so I'm not going to get into a back and forth about who got worse flags or who got fucked worse. I mean, the flags were everywhere. The refs took over this game. But the defense for the Bills just stepping up again in a situation where you're playing an interim coach, you're going to get their best shot. It's Aaron Rodgers mad. It's I got the offense the way I want it. They take the first punch, right? They go down. They take a Hail Mary to the face before the half. You know, you work so hard to get 2 possessions. You're like, we're in control of this game. Hail Mary. Nobody back there is trying to knock the ball down. So one thing that I couldn't stand that they did, and Nolan, you pointed this out, why not get Keon Coleman out there?
Yeah, you got, I mean, the guys at the scene of the crime. It was Rapp, it was DeMar, it was Taron Johnson, it was Benford. Average height of those guys 6 foot against Lazard, who's 6'5", in a jump ball situation.
Yeah, dude. So that was the one thing. And it's another thing where I'm like, okay, I know that, you know, Jets fans are like, well, we missed 2 field goals. Well, so did the Bills. You know, and so you got a free 7 there. Now, it's not an accident. Rodgers is the best Hail Mary guy of all time. But that ball should be on the ground. And, you know, anybody that's been in an NFL building would tell you that's not supposed to happen, ever. And when it happens, it's usually because somebody's not doing the thing that they were asked to do, which is knock the fucking ball down. Even I know that. So, you know, like you get 7 points in that situation. The Bills could have really ran away with this game. They let them in it, and the Jets stayed in the game. But I thought the Bills made so many gutsy plays as the game went on. Josh Allen, he's inevitable. Made some big plays last night. Just pretty cool. Pretty cool to see the Bills respond like that, coming off a game where they played like shit. They're down James Cook. They're down guys. And when they get Milano back, you know, and they get Von Miller back and they're fully healthy, you know, when they get James Cook back, I don't know if this game goes any different because you had Davante Adams, not in Buffalo, late in the season. And I look at this team, and they're 2-0 in the AFC East. They're 2-0. Okay. So they have an opportunity here to play the Patriots twice more. And so at the very least, not to discount what Drake May did there. Me and Chris Brockman talked about that today on Rich Eisen's show. I'm not discounting that guy, but I am saying that should be 2 wins. Okay. So at worst, you're 4-2 in the division. You should win this division, you know, and you should be hosting playoff games. And that would make things even more complicated for the Jets going on the road, having to do that thing in Buffalo or wherever they got to go. So in summation, one team in the AFC took a big step forward this morning, but another team that was a couple steps ahead of them, in my opinion, also took a big step forward. And I think the world of Amari Cooper. You know, I think he's a hell of a player and somebody I hope to see get a ring. You know, he's always just done his job. You
saw what he did with Joe Flacco last year at the end of last season. How well you think he's going to play with Josh Allen? Like he's going to ball.
No, it was amazing. I mean, it was amazing watching. I called it the most beautiful game of catch I ever saw. That first Houston game, I think it was the first Houston game where Houston had to play like Case Keenum, but it didn't matter. They didn't have a kicker. It was one of those situations. And it was just like they could not guard the guy. He's still damn good. And to give Josh another weapon outside the numbers that's a big deal. And it's very intentional. You know, I think when you make that trade, I think they've been talking about this trade since they came out of the Baltimore game. I really do. I really do. And I think it came down to like, who do we want to go for broke for? And I don't know if they were ever looking at Davante or they were sweating Davante, and Davante was just like, no, I want to go play with my friend. But I think it's a pretty good ace in the hole here. Like, you could argue it's just as good. I'm saying that with my Buffalo Bills tinted glasses. Somebody said, did you see the Ravens fan? Yeah. Do you know how hard it is? And we're talking about the former lacrosse player, college lacrosse player that was running around beating up little guys, like guys that were half his size. He's seeking them out. He's wearing a Lamar Jackson jersey. He's running around after that game the other night, and he's beating up Commanders fans. I don't know how many he beat up. I don't know if anybody knows the background of the story. You've seen it if you're online by now. I think the guy's name is Jack Callis. I'll say his name because he should be fucking embarrassed. Do you know how bad you have to be at life to unite every corner of America against you? Like, you are failing at life, brother. Like, absolute failure. And this is the type of thing we should all get behind and be like, this is ridiculous. And do you know how hard it is to get everybody behind something in that way right now? I have not seen a single soul online be like, yeah, but you suck. Hey guys, young people, be careful what you do for clout. Be careful what you do because there's a cell phone around. Be careful what you do to impress strangers. I don't think most of us would go, I mean, this is psychotic behavior. But to actually unite every sports fan in America against you in agreement that you're just a huge piece of shit and you should be in jail and you should lose your job. And I agree with all those things. Take this as a lesson. I don't know what the lesson is, but like, maybe don't be an asshole. As a football fan, maybe don't be an asshole. Maybe don't be an asshole. Maybe realize it's just a game. It is just a game. And so, to Jack Callis, I would say, get you some soap on a rope, my brother.